Just a few years ago, the New Orleans Pelicans had one of the brightest futures in the NBA. In fact, The Ringer ranked them number 2 in the entire league for their young core and assets. They not only had guaranteed future star Zion Williamson, but a ton of picks to build with. But now, in just a few short years, they ruined everything. A bleak future, and the present is even worse. Season predictions just came out, and FanDuel has NOLA at just 29.5 wins. That is the 5th lowest total, just above the Hornets, Wizards, Nets, and Jazz. For a team that considers themselves win now, you're gonna be a mess. But how did it get this bad? How did they take one of the brightest futures and ruin it? But summer is here, and my favorite way to stay fit is to do a little working out, but I always dial in the diet. What I found for me is that 90% of staying in shape is all about the diet. And I look for convenience, a good price, and most of all, something that tastes good. MyFitFoods has been amazing for me. A lot of you guys have reached out, said that you love them too. They are pre-made meals that are ready in just a couple of minutes, and they have so much variety, so I never get bored. Plus, it helps out the channel if you check them out and use my discount code AMH25 for 25% off your first order. They've got stores all around Texas. Plus, you could walk into a store in Portland or Denver. More stores coming soon. But I've tried a million of these meal prep places. MyFitFoods is by far the best one I have ever tried. So please go check them out. The discount code again is AMH25. Well, it's gotta start with Zion. Now, he is just one piece of the puzzle, but a gigantic piece. The kid was supposed to be a no-doubt superstar, but has become the biggest headache since Ben Simmons. Constantly injured or out of shape, but the Pels actually had a rare opportunity to move on. A unique chance with his contract. So because Zion was unreliable, he got a very team-friendly deal. Only 20% of his money is guaranteed if he passes 6 weigh-in checkpoints throughout the season. Then 40% kicks in if he plays at least 41 games. 20% for 51 games, and the last 20 for 61 games. But last year, he played 30 games. So the Pels could cut him, a little bit of money, but wipe his final 2 years off the books. Do you know how many teams would die for that? Like, the Bucks are now paying Damian Lillard $23 million a year for the next 5 years because he didn't have that kind of contract. But the new Pels executive, Joe Dumars, said, you know what? We have been too hard on this Zion kid. All he needs is another chance. So New Orleans just guaranteed his full contract for next year. Dumars said, we're going to continue to go forward with him as the face of our franchise. Now, I told him we're going to do this, but there's responsibility and accountability that comes with it. How many times have we heard that? And is there really accountability? He just got rewarded again for playing 30 games. So I am sorry, but when Zion's out again and Jordan Poole is the face of the franchise, no one's feeling sorry. And here's the man himself recently showing vacation pics with his friends. At least he's resting this offseason. But why did they do this? Well, the fear is that Zion is going to suddenly get healthy and be an all-star somewhere else. See, winning that draft lottery was maybe the best moment in franchise history. Remember that clip of the ticket staff going nuts when they got Zion? It must be really hard just to let that go. And after all, in those 30 games last year, Zion maybe played the best basketball of his life. Dude averaged 25 points a night with 7 boards and 5 dimes in just 28 minutes a night. But again, just 30 games. The alternative is constantly living in fear and uncertainty from a guy who has not shown the maturity of a superstar. But not only is Zion a shaky investment, they have now doubled down on his success. Like betting your life savings on a horse that's never finished a race because he looked good in warm-ups. Why would you do that? Well, on draft night, New Orleans got young guard Jeremiah Fears at 7, but they had their eye on another lottery pick. Problem was, their next selection was all the way down at 23. So they traded all the way up to 13 by sending that 23rd pick and an unprotected in 2026. One of their most valuable assets. It's the better first of either New Orleans or Milwaukee. Don't know if you've seen the Bucks lately. And for that, they picked Derek Queen. a center who struggles on defense and shooting. Two pretty important skills in 2025. But forget Derek Queen. They traded their 2026 unprotected. That means if the Pels suck next year, the pick goes to the Hawks. And do you remember what their win total was? The Pels may have very well given up a top 5 pick in a loaded draft for Derek Queen. They need Zion to stay healthy. So what genius did this? Well, the Pels hired Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver to run the front office this summer. Both guys led the Pistons into the ground. Now, yes, Dumars did put together the 04 championship team, but his last 6 years in Detroit were a disaster. But this is what happens when your franchise gets viewed as like a black hole where careers go to die. You don't get top free agents or leadership. And by the way, while we're on the topic of picks, they also traded the Pacers' first-round pick back to them right before Tyrese Haliburton got injured. Now that is just plain bad luck, but not this boneheaded Derek Queen move. But a big part of that horrible win total is the DeJounte Murray injury. Dude tore his Achilles and is going to be out all next year. But they lost that trade regardless. The Pels had to send out 2 first-round picks for DeJounte, and a guy that they just threw in, Dyson Daniels, has now become the best young defender in the NBA. And that is not to mention dealing CJ McCollum's expiring contract for an extra year of Jordan Poole. But do the Pelicans actually have now the worst future in the NBA? Well, there are 4 other teams that might have it worse. First, the Suns don't control any of their first-round picks until 2032. So even if they suck, their picks are going somewhere else. Oh, but they've got Devin Booker. Yeah, but they just missed the playoffs with a healthy Book and Kevin friggin' Durant. And are we sure about Devin Booker? I mean, dude is now in his prime and missed the postseason. Generally, top 10 championship level guys don't do that. We thought Book was one of those guys. Maybe not. Next is the Chicago Bulls, who might have their own picks, but for some reason, a terrible front office, no matter who they hire. Like the last 20 years, no matter what, it's been bad. Like, can you believe they still have Nikola Vucevic on this team? For what? So you can win 39 games and make the play-in? But this team always either holds on to the guys for too long before they trade them, or they get a terrible return back. Like Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey and no picks, when OKC had a million picks to throw in. Or Lonzo Ball probably could have got a pick. Instead, they waited and just got Isaac Okoro. Next, we've got the Brooklyn Nets, who are like 3 years away from being 3 years away. Who is the best player on their team right now? Michael Porter Jr.? They need to pray to get lucky in the draft next year because they got no plan B. Like, speaking of luck, they got lucky when KD and Kyrie randomly chose them because they wanted to play in New York. But now imagine that happening again. I mean, now that the Knicks are good, I don't think any big free agent wants to be a Net. Now, I would also not like to be a Kings fan, but what about the Bucks? Like when Giannis eventually leaves, they've only got one of their first-round picks in 2032, which means that the Giannis trade will have to include their own picks back, which kills their leverage in any Giannis trade. But until then, it's going to be really hard to build a team after that Dame disaster because they owe him about $23 million the next 5 years, which is like having a starting caliber player who never plays a game for 5 years. So if we rank the worst futures in the NBA right now, I would go Suns 1, Bucks 2, then Pels, Bulls, Nets, and Kings, which is pretty crazy for a Pelicans team that had one of the brightest futures just a few years ago. But big things are happening in LA right now this offseason. The Clippers have had an amazing summer. They got John Collins basically for nothing, Brook Lopez, great backup center, and now Bradley Beal. But what about the Lakers? LeBron's upset about how they haven't done much this summer, but actually, the Lakers might be done with him.